Wham. Liftoff.
I watched the past 100 years, all of the ways that communism had infiltrated America. And at that time, this is just after the election in 2016, we had all of the different riots happening. We had all the racial tension. So I was already thinking, okay, something's not right here. You see the burning flags in the street. Like, what's behind this? And that's when it all clicked. It's like, we're undergoing a communist coup. Remember the 3 a.m. votes that came in for Biden?
Yeah.
Like, that was my YouTube analytics from Trump. It just like went straight vertical, right?
Just guess, how many people probably watched that video?
100 million.
Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacey Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values. Hey, Flyover family, we have Seth Holehouse in studio for an exclusive interview.
Now, we built out this second studio to be able to do in-person interviews. This is exactly what we hoped and dreamed of. I remember the first time I saw the viral video, The Plot to Steal America, by Man in America.
Yes.
And I thought, that is a mind that I wanted to get into and dig around a little bit, and you're about to see why.
So like my first real garden as an adult was a house my wife and I were renting. We first came back from New York City, and I built 3 4-foot by 8-foot raised beds, or 4 of them, I think. And we were overflowing with food, and we learned so much.
Yeah.
Like for people that say, "Oh, I'm prepped. I've got all my seeds." It's like, if you don't know how to garden, if you haven't screwed up at least 1 or 2 years worth of gardening, you're not going to do very well. Right. You have to be able to kind of put it into action.
Mm-hmm.
So gardening is just so key. And obviously knowing how to preserve, right? So whether it's potatoes and you're putting them into a root cellar, or it's your tomatoes, which you're going to be canning, that's going to be key. Or, say you have you're dehydrating squash or whatever it is.
Our farm, when I grew up, we had potatoes all the time. I mean, every meal had potatoes with it: baked potato, fried potato, potato soup. It's like the guy in Forrest Gump. Yeah. And I just thought our family liked potatoes a lot, and I just didn't realize they were so cheap to grow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we just had unlimited, and we put them in this back porch in this bin. They'd have like little stems coming off of them. And just kind of cut those off and just kind of keep going. And we had them all winter, but you just grow rows and rows and rows of potatoes. And it was, there's 6 of us in our family, so it's an easy way to feed a bunch of kids.
Oh, yeah. And then there's those ones that have little stems growing off. You save them for the next year. You cut them up, you replant them, and that little quarter of potato turns into 15 new potatoes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So that's kind of getting in. And if you guys have any questions, please jump in. So I'll just kind of keep going.
I love it.
This is phenomenal,
so
because this is something that's just, when you turn on, truther channels and you turn on some of these spaces, there's all this like, how bad, honestly, Yuval Harari is? And it's like, yeah, that's a thing. I mean, we get it. But like, what can I do in my space? And I think the more actionable items that people can be busy doing, their fear goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Because it's like you just hunker down in your corner and you magnify, how much, negative there is. Like,
so actually there's
the hard red wheat.
Yep. That's how
it is Tractor Supply. You speak truth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the buckets.
Yep.
Look at that.
So this is a video I think I put up. I have a Towards Tradition Telegram channel, which I'll put these things up sometimes. But that's the hard red. I think it's a 40-pound bag maybe. There's the buckets. Those buckets were like $3 a piece.
Okay.
And that hammer's for putting the lid down.
Yeah.
The little rubber
and
mallet.
So I think that I show you inside.
Just like you said.
Is that the oxygen thing?
There's the lid. Those are the little oxygen packets
Yep.
that you see down there. See, there's a rubber seal in the lid.
There's a Tractor Supply about a mile from my house right now.
Not very far.
There's my non-alcoholic beer, which I drink. That's the little O2 packet.
Okay.
So then you fill the bucket up, which I think that this one's, maybe I already filled it up. Oh, no, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's what it looks like. That's the hard red wheat with a single packet. And that right there could be enough that you could probably bake bread for a year.
Wow.
Or half a year. If you're doing small loaves, you grind that up.
I know
and
people probably watching are like, I don't have gluten and stuff like this. Well, man, I guarantee you. I don't.
If the world is hungry, you're
I try
not
to
gonna
lay
care.
off the carbs a little. It's like you're probably going to want some.
Don't worry, you'll lose weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
worry.
Weight won't be a
It
problem.
will not be a problem
in this scenario. Again, that was being overweight was only a rich person's problem up until about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, even look at the Monopoly guy and all this stuff. Like having some extra weight was a sign of success.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you do that? Look at you.
And Colton has your thing there, Country Living Grain Mill.
Oh yeah, so it's crazy how the prices go up on these things. But that's the grain mill I bought. I think mine was maybe 550.
Okay.
If you even get them in stock. But that's like that's kind of, it's aircraft aluminum.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's like the,
that's the
you know,
nice.
that's what the Amish will use for 3 generations.
Yeah.
But you can get grain mills on Amazon.
Okay.
I recommend not using Amazon because it's just kind of like the Death
deep
Star.
state.
You know?
Yeah.
But you can get for a couple $100
Sure.
a good grain mill.
Sure.
But man, if you did buy 2 of them, I mean, it's almost like converting fiat currency to silver.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
That's, you could trade
Yeah.
that for something
What's
big.
what's that worth if the supply chain's broke?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. Is that like,
Yeah.
what's it worth? So I bought like an extra set of like parts if things break on it. So I've got the backup parts.
Sure.
So that's kind of one aspect, right? There's some bread that we
Oh man, that's beautiful.
we baked at home.
Wow.
Just when we use a starter, so we have I think 150-year-old San Francisco starter. I think we got, and the ingredients are just flour, water, and salt. That's it. So if you have a wood burning stove, or you say you buy an outdoor stove that you can do bread in, literally, there's the recipe.
The recipe for it.
Yep. So literally, it's just flour, water, and salt. That's our recipe, and you've got beautiful bread. What's a loaf of that bread worth in the future?
Wow, no kidding.
Right? Even now, I mean,
our daughter-in-law, because they get raw milk and all of that from a local farmer, and she actually trades loaves of bread for milk. So she's already doing the trading
Boom.
thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's okay. So then that gets into a lot of the food. So which is key. Water. So let's talk a little about water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So water is something that is critical to understand. Now there's a variety of things that, kind of deal. So for a lot of people, now, again, I don't want to scare people into thinking like, oh, I'm screwed because I'm in a city, I'm on city water.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing you can do is you can store water. You can get even 5-gallon buckets you can put water into. You can get 50-gallon drums you can put water into. You have to add a little bit of, I don't know the exact kind of ratio, but a lot of times you put a little bit of bleach in the water or something just to kind of keep the bacteria down.
Right.
You don't want it to be sitting in the sun because it'll grow algae in it. But, water is so important. And I've heard different numbers, but the thing is because you use water for eating or for drinking, use it for cooking, use it for hygiene. You use it because that's the big thing is that if there's a grid down scenario, a lot of people don't make it because they're not washing right and they get bacteria problems, or they're drinking water that has cholera or some sort of other, that's what ends up, wiping people out. So with water though, you have to look, okay, now what the process we went through. So we moved to an area where our home was on county water. Now the water smelled like a swimming pool. Like, it's bad water. They're adding all kinds of fluoride and chlorine and everything. So we dug a well. Now it was expensive. I mean, a well's like upwards of $10,000, right? That's these days, what's what a well costs. But digging a well means that I now have my own water supply, which was really important. Now I have to run the pump. So, I'm working on getting some solar hooked up so I can run the pump off of solar. That way the well will never stop giving us water. The other thing is that, catching rain. So say you can't have a well where some places, maybe it's cost prohibitive. Or perhaps you just in your region, there's just no proper underground aquifers. You can set up a water catchment. So I've got all the supplies. I haven't finished it yet, but you can there's these big, and actually, Colton, if you want to search for what's called I think it's called ICB tote, right? Okay. You can find these big totes. I think they're around 250 gallons approximately. You can find them on Facebook Marketplace for $100 or $50 or even free sometimes. So you get these totes. That's what they look like.
Okay.
Because that's what, like for big bakeries or they'll ship these things with olive oil or sweetener. You just want to make sure you're not buying one that was used to ship like motor oil or chemicals, right? Yeah. Like all of the ones I got came from a local bakery. Okay. So one was used for like, corn syrup, et cetera. So you have to paint them black or cover them because they're partially clear, the sun will grow algae inside. Okay. But you can get these little adapters off of, I keep saying Amazon because it's kind of, you can get them online.
It's almost like slang for shopping.
Yeah, it's like Google something. Right. Just Amazon it, right? Yeah. But you get these little kind of things that hook up to your gutter system where it's just a spout that pulls water off of your gutter into your water catchment system. Okay. And so that way, when it rains, like a good size rain, like with your guys' home, one rain will probably fill up 30 of those things.
Wow.
Like a heavy rain.
Can those be buried?
You can bury them. Yep. So a lot of people do like the underground cisterns, right? But you can also, you could bury one of those and have a little hand pump that you use to pull the water out of it. So that you can get little kits like that. So they're a little bit more nicer to look at.
So you're probably not using that for drinking. It'd be more for like cleaning and for, you know, maybe hygiene or, you know, I remember some of the stories that people in Texas, again, when they had that ice storm, they were like trying to melt snow so they could flush their toilet.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh yeah. So whether it's watering your crops, you know, watering your animals, if I wouldn't recommend drinking it straight from there because, you know, you'll have stuff that's growing in there and everything. But if you have, say, a Berkey filter, you know, or some sort of good kind of gravity filter, or you just boil it, then you have your drinking water as well. But that way, because again, we're removing every link in the supply chain. So instead of it being, okay, well, I'm going to need to turn on the faucet and the water comes from a centralized water plant and, you know, that's, you know, being controlled. They have to use electricity to pump the water to me. There's all those little links in that chain that if it breaks, you no longer have water.
Right.
Okay. But if you have the ability to catch your own water from the rain, and I forget the calculation, but like for every square foot of roof, you get an insane amount of water. So these will be overflowing after a small rain. And then you just keep that water and it becomes backup. So that's another really, really good source of water. But filtration is really, really key as well. I mentioned Berkey.
Yep.
So it's, I think it's berkeyfilters.com. I'm not sure if you guys have a Berkey or not.
We don't, but I've seen them and pretty familiar with a lot of friends that have one.
Yeah.
And we've intended to get one.
Yeah, they're good. That's what they look like. They have different sizes. So even though we have well water, which is tested, it's really healthy, it's good water, we still run it through the Berkey. So our drinking, I think we have the 6 gallon one, I think, or maybe the 4.5.
Where do you put yours?
It's sitting on our countertop in our kitchen. So you basically, the top half comes off, you fill it up under your sink, you put it on top, and then that's most of our drinking water comes from that. It pulls out almost everything.
So if you had rainwater out there and you put it in there,
you're safe.
You'd be safe.
Really?
I've seen YouTube videos. People have taken swamp water, like mucky brown, green swamp water, and it turns into pure drinking water through the filtration.
That's incredible.
It's kind of crazy. Like a lot of them are unavailable.
Yeah.
Again, this is like that's a good example because this is what happens. Right now, we have a window that we can still get this kind of stuff. But in the future, you want to go buy some, you know, bulk, wheat berries. Good luck finding them. You know, so that's the thing is that everything that you're getting right now, it's significant. So again, that's water filtration. That's kind of, I think I covered the main bases. The other thing you can also do is if you have a body of water close to you, like a pond, etc., even just, you know, bucketing water up from a pond. So with you guys in your backyard, you've got a huge water source. So you could arguably say that you would never need to have a rainwater system because you can just get water out of there. You get a decent hand pump and you can bring water up there. So, and now we'll talk about energy a little bit.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So energy becomes really important. So right now, I know you're probably on the main power grid. Right? I have AEP where I'm at in Ohio, right? If that grid goes down, which it does sometimes, like even with storms, it feels like it's even more finicky now than it ever has been, you're without power. So the first thing that we did, because we're on natural gas, we put in a Generac, right? A whole house
like a generator?
Yep.
Okay.
And so what that does is it's a dual fuel. So it's hooked up directly to the natural gas, or I can bury a propane tank and hook it up. So that's kind of stage one. So, and that's helped us already so much. So power goes out. 30 seconds later, power's back on. You open the door, the generator's already running. It's got a big engine. It kicks on automatically. It's fueled by the natural gas.
Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how in 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, That $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for your free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
So we've run our house off the generator for 3 or 4 days at a time sometimes,
Okay.
if it's a bad outage. That means all of our food, because once we have a freezer full of half cow and everything,
Right.
it's like, well, gosh, if we lose that, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So Generac is good. But also you can have portable generators. Now those are the portable stuff, especially the engine powered stuff, is good for temporary solutions. But as you mentioned earlier, if your neighborhood is, say, without power for a month, it's getting a little hairy, and you're the one home
Right, that has all the lights. Yeah, exactly.
It says 2 things. 1, you've got electricity. 2, you've got fuel.
Yeah.
Right?
It also means I probably know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It means I got a lot of other things.
This guy's got a lot of food in his basement.
Exactly.
Well, let's go
Something
hit
he's
those
trying
guys.
to protect.
Yes. So, but that's still an important thing because, it could be 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there where it becomes what's really useful. So redundancy is really, really important to me and a lot of what I'm doing. So with the generators side, I think that we've got 4 different generators. Okay. And so,
wow.
And now people might look at this like, oh, that's intimidating. It's like, well, yeah, I'm a little bit of a nut with this stuff. Right. So we have the Generac generator. Then I have just a regular gasoline, like a Craftsman generator that, won't run very much, but might run a big freezer. Right. I've got some solar. So I bought a Jackery kit, which is one of the portable, solar generators. It's like a Jackery 1500 that might run like a fridge and something else.
Is that a brand name or is that like a style?
So that's a brand name. So it's Jackery, and they have sales. It's Jackery. I'm sure Courtney will probably pull it up.
Jackery.
Yep, that's what it is right there.
Boom.
So I've got that with 2 extra panels. So I've got 4 panels. So that will be enough for running small items, a small fridge. That's kind of covering the bases.
So you could put that in your yard and run a cord in or something to your refrigerator.
Yep.
Keep it going if you need to.
Now I do want to.
Or do you use those panels to charge up that unit and bring the unit in to run the refrigerator, or do you directly?
I think you could have a long enough cable to run the panels to, like, say you have that unit sitting in your living room and you have a cord that goes out your window that goes to the panels.
Okay.
And then you can then plug in cords into the unit itself. Right. So I want to do, one of our next big things we're going to do is build out a solar system. Like my goal is to be completely off grid and to have solar that we can use.
Would it be on top of your house, or would you have it on the land?
We'd probably do it off on our field because we've got a 3-acre field that I think they're kind of ugly on houses, just my own preference. But also I like the idea of being on a field because I can go out there if it snows, I can go brush it off if snow, etc. Sure. So that's one of the goals. But then the other thing that we've got is, I bought a tractor, right? Actually, it was 0% financing for 3 years for Kubota. And it's like, that's free money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
no kidding.
So what I did is, I got a little Kubota tractor. I think I showed you guys pictures of it.
Oh, yeah.
I
think you were thinking his tractor was sexy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got a total Kenny Chesney thing going on for your tractor.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, he was singing that song in his head.
Yeah. So I got, actually, if Colton wants to pull it up, it's a BX 2380. It's like the smallest.
Did you know any of this when you lived in New York City?
No, nothing.
With the guy that was in the jewelry business in New York City, even relate.
You'd be like speaking a foreign language.
I got a BX 2380 and I got a grinder and
you wouldn't even think about it.
So there's the name of that? Was it
Jackery?
Jackery. Yeah.
So there's hope for everybody out there watching the show right now.
Oh, there is. Yeah. So this is the tractor that I have.
Okay.
It's not my actual tractor. It's a picture of it. So I use it to mow my lawn. I have a 60-inch deck,
Oh
but
my
it has the
gosh.
bucket on the front of it, which is really important. That's because the first year and a half, I moved so much soil by hand. It was back-breaking.
I bet.
I mean, shoveling a wheelbarrow of soil, we probably moved 40 yards of soil, which is like, that's enough to fill half the basement. You know what I mean? Like that much soil all
Good
over
shape,
the
though, I bet.
property.
Yeah.
Oh, I got in really good shape from doing
bet.
it. Yeah. Actually, I put on weight once I got the tractor. Right. So that's been really, really helpful just for helping me around the property.
Yeah.
But so these tractors have what's called a PTO, which is a power transfer. I think power transfer output, I believe. But anyway, so what it means though is off the back of that tractor, you have a little kind of spinning thing you can connect things through. So you can connect all kinds of stuff to the back of your tractor.
Mm-hmm.
So like in
That's
that one,
that powers your mower and
so that one you
drive.
can have a pull behind mower it's a rear PTO. But you can. So one thing I bought a PTO generator.
Okay.
So I bought a
wow.
generator that
This is your fourth generator?
that's the fourth one that can hook up to the back of the tractor. So now I can convert diesel fuel into right there. Yep.
Whoa.
That's what they look like. I think mine's a WinCo. I think it was Mike Adams' recommendation. I got it WinCo. So basically, you can convert diesel fuel into electricity.
Wow.
Right. So one thing that I also did is that as I was researching, so gasoline doesn't have a very long shelf life. After about a year or so, it starts losing.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
but diesel, if you use like stable and anti-algae kind of chemicals, diesel can last over 5 years.
Okay.
So I went to Facebook Marketplace and I found someone selling a 300-gallon dual-walled fuel tank. And so I went and I got the fuel tank and I brought it back home. And then you can get diesel delivery. It's called red diesel because it's dyed red. So because you're not paying for tax on it.
Okay.
So you can get that because you're not supposed to use it on the highway, right?
Okay.
So just for farm or off-road diesel, they call it. So I went and got 300 gallons of diesel. And so now that diesel will last probably 5 years. That diesel, the tractor it's so efficient. So even if I had to, I could probably run my house for 4 months off of the diesel fuel that I have, right? So that was kind of another equation. But these PTO tractors, you can buy a water pump PTO. So say I needed to pump up water from the lake behind us. You can say for watering vegetables, you can buy these pumps that attach to the back. So PTO water pumps. I mean, or say you have a gravity fed system, you have a big cistern at the top of a hill that normally use electricity to pump up. You use your diesel to pump your water up and fill up your cistern. So then you're using gravity energy to then, give you water pressure.
Wow.
So you use half a day's worth of tractor running to pump all your water uphill. And now you have, again, there's no supply chain.
Yeah.
You literally have gravity that's giving you water pressure. So there's a PTO water pump that you can use. So
That's unbelievable.
now these are obviously you can tell that I'm kind of
This is very advanced.
This is not day one, step one.
No,
if you're living in an apartment in Chicago,
No.
it's like first step is buy a diesel tractor with
where would I park it? It costs $2,000 a month to park my car.
My apartment does not allow large fuel tanks.
Exactly.
No fuel storage in the building.
But it is a process.
Yeah.
And
you've been at it, is this your third year?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, we moved back in 2020. And so I did some prepping in New York, but it was mostly like, you can't buy guns in New York City. So it was mostly, I bought some MREs and some backpacks and some cool knives and just enough stuff that basically I built a bug out bag.
Yeah.
So I built what I need to get out of New York City. Right. And get somewhere else.
Yeah.
But, so we've only really been properly doing all this for about 2 years.
Wow.
Right. So
that's really cool.
Well, and again, it's a place of abundance because you're in a place where you not only can take care of your basic needs, but you're also, parents or other people that are in your life, that may be like, crazy Seth, or whatever, like, hey, Seth, buddy.
You got extra food? You got all that rice in your basement?
Yeah.
You can say I told you so as much as you want, but can I come in?
Yeah.
'Cause I could go for some bread.
Yeah.
You're in a place to do that. Let's jump into one last category here while we got you pinned down.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread a light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put into the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
I'm so excited about the ReAwaken America event.
That's Freedom Train. The
Freedom
Train. We got that event coming up here in May, and we're excited.
It's going to be at the Trump Doral, and what a perfect location. It is absolutely beautiful. But we're going to have the cast of crew around President Trump.
Yeah.
You're going to have Peter Navarro. You're going to have Devin Nunes. You're going to have Eric Trump. You're going to have Laura Trump. You're going to have Clay Clark. These people that surround him, that talk to him regularly, are going to be there, and you're going to have an opportunity to meet them. And we're going to have such a great time. It is May
Very
the
exciting
12th
time.
and the 13th, and it's not too late. You can still get tickets. All you have to do is text 918-851-0102. Text the word flyover, and then they'll let you know, hey, this is the next step, but it also gets you a discount when you do that.
And that is currency. We've talked a little bit about you can trade bread, and you got some different things. Something we dive into a lot here is fiat currency.
Yeah.
And the fact of we sort of live kind of like you just assume, you come home, your lights work, you just there's certain just assumptions you have in our society that things are always going to be the same. But I think people are waking up to the idea that their dollar is worth less than it was even a year or two ago. It's not the generations like you hear our grandparents talk, and it's like, I used to work for a quarter a day, or it's this kind of like crazy, like right now it's changing so fast you actually feel it in real time. This isn't over like, well, my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, it's like, oh yeah, last year, you could your money went further. And so we're seeing the dollar be worth less. There's the shift of the BRICS nations, and more countries, even Mexico now is moving
France,
France openly,
Kenya,
and Japan, our allies.
Yeah.
So again, everything is kind of a work in progress. Everybody can't do everything in a day. But what advice do you have for people that want to take personal responsibility for their finances? We've got to talk about personal responsibility for your food and your medicine. We push a lot personal responsibility for your children's education. They may not get the same thing at the public school that you did. Personal responsibility for your own faith, not just, well, this is what he said. And, like
Read your own Bible.
Yeah. Like, open the book up and look at it for yourself, and see what's in there. But when it comes to your finances.
Well, I think that the important kind of fundamental principle to look at with this is just being very sober about where our currency is at. Because then when you understand that and the very foundational principle of that, it's easier to make all your other decisions. And so, fiat currencies, as I'm sure that Kirk Elliott has educated your audience a lot on, have a life cycle. A fiat currency, meaning a currency that's not tied directly to, say, a commodity like gold or silver or oil, a currency that is just the value of that currency comes out of the perceived value and the demand globally, right? So all of the, I'll be quick with this. I know your audience is very smart with this stuff, but all of the the components that secured a demand for our dollar globally are very fast deteriorating. And so if someone's watching and they say, well, my financial advisor says we might be going into a recession, they're lying to you or they're ignorant or both.
Yeah.
Right. Because what we're going into is that we're going through the process of a currency collapse, because the dollar has been a weapon. And it was I think it's been intentional, but by Biden sanctioning Russia and kicking them out of the SWIFT system, that was I think the final straw for the US dollar. That was enough to show all the nations in the world that the United States and the Federal Reserve will use this currency as a weapon. And they said, I don't want to be part of that. And so now again, we have the BRICS nations and everything. So
actually see Russia not only survive, but kind of thrive.
Right.
Exactly.
And they've been moving towards gold for a long time. I look at it a little bit like if your kids are in middle school, they kind of have to do what you say because they don't have any money.
Yeah.
And so they better be nice. They better clean their room. They better turn off this show and watch this. They better get the homework. That you could kind of control somebody if you have the money. They don't. It's the golden rule. If you have the gold, you can kind of make the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, all of a sudden a kid gets into high school. He's got a car. He has a job.
Oh yeah.
They're a little more defiant. They're like, hey, I've got money.
I'll buy my own food.
I got my own.
Yeah.
I don't need. It's harder to control someone with options. Well, the world is displayed now. They have options.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this is, again, this is a big part of it is like, what is money, right? Because, really, I mean, we don't want monies to have money. It's like, okay, say you log into your bank account and there's, it says 100,000 on that. What does that really mean? Well, what it means is that you can transfer those digits for other items. It's a bartering tool that you can say, okay, I'll give you 10,000 of those units for 400 ounces of silver, right? You can make that transaction right now. But I think that fundamentally, though, in being just really sober about where the dollar's at, and look, I'm no economic expert. I can't see the future, but all the writing on the wall to me shows that we're at the end of a currency cycle, right? And that what that means is that when the dollar collapses, because that's what we're experiencing. We're experiencing the beginning stages of the collapse of the U.S. dollar, and what that looks like, we've never been through in America, right? We've been through Great Depression, we've been through bank runs and financial panic and stock market crashes and the dot-com crash, and this is different, right? We've never been through the collapse of a currency as Americans. Now, what's also different about it is that the whole world is tied into the U.S. dollar. So when Venezuela's currency collapsed, it didn't bring down the whole world with it. When Zimbabwe's currency collapsed, we didn't even hear about it in America.
Right.
When the U.S. dollar collapses, the entire world will know.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why countries are rapidly getting away from it, because they're trying to limit their exposure to it. And so that gets into the person that's watching the show. That's like, okay, where are your assets? Well, I've got 100,000 in a 401k. I've got 200,000 in an IRA. I've got 30,000 in a savings. I've got 200,000 in the stock market. That's all dollar denominated assets, right?
Not good.
If the dollar goes to zero, if it cuts in half, all those assets get cut in half, or they get wiped clean. That's just the reality of it. It's not about people say, oh, it's doom and gloom. It's like, look, like if you could have gone to Venezuela and told someone before the currency collapsed, like, hey, take all your money out, put it into bullets, silver, food, whatever, that person would have been a king when the currency collapsed, right?
Well, and it's not like, well, that could never happen. It's happened every time.
Like, says everybody.
Yeah,
says,
exactly.
Says Rome.
Yeah.
You know?
What's the current life cycle of a global currency? Like, I don't care if you call it the Dutch or whatever, like 80 years.
Yeah.
80 to 100 years,
100
maybe.
years, you're lucky.
So the fact that we've had this run right now is kind of almost an outlier, but we're about at the end of that window.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Just like we talked about food prepping, what are you doing prepping financially?
Well, so there's a few things for me. One is that in terms of the priorities, I'm trying to prioritize the tangible goods, right? So it's like, okay, if right now, if I have $1,000 and I'm starting out, would I buy $1,000 in silver or $1,000 in food or $1,000 in bullets? Well, I'd maybe buy like $100 in silver and spread the rest out across like probably food and maybe $100 in bullets, and the rest goes into food and water, right? So that's the thing, is that it's like I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, you can't eat silver. True. Like if right now you have no food and you're putting all your money into silver, you're making a mistake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's why I say, so if say, you got that money, okay, that $100,000 IRA, put 10 grand of that into food, get yourself a year's worth of food for your family. Done. You know what I mean? Store it in your basement. And the thing is, fundamentally though, and this is, I've had to adjust my thinking, is that you're not spending money. You're just transferring your wealth to a different asset, right? So if I went out today and bought $10,000 worth of bullets, which I've never done in a day, that's that's too much.
That would be a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Not too much, I guess, but anyway.
There is no such thing as too much, but it would be more than necessary maybe at the moment.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not throwing away $10,000. Like
It's tangible.
those are an asset. I'm just transferring that money out of the dollar, which is rapidly collapsing, into an asset that's going to be rapidly increasing in its value, right? With where we're headed. So the same thing with silver, right? Silver's what, up how much, what 30% in the past 6 months?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like that same person that say a year ago, say they got $100,000 and it's sitting in an IRA, and they're like, no, I'm going to keep my money in the IRA. Well, that $100,000 is now worth about $80,000 after a year. But if you would have put it into silver, it'd be worth about $150,000, or however much it's gone in the past year. I'm not sure. Kirk would know. So that what I'm looking at, how I look at it is it's about putting, like we need, our assets are what provide our food, our family. It's what gives us everything on this earthly world. Is we have to exchange things. You can't go steal from your neighbor. You have to exchange bullets for bread or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that how my kind of approach with it is that, like, taking my assets, trying not to have too much of my money sitting in the dollar, right? Even if it means buying fuel, like when the bill for my diesel fuel was $2,000 or whatever. I forget how much it was, but I was like, okay, well, that's a good store of wealth, because maybe in the future, if diesel's $10 a gallon and you can't even get it, I could sell that diesel for $15 a gallon, but I wouldn't want the dollar, replacement for it. I'd want, I'd want silver for it. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're talking like store of value, like buying, go to garage sales and you buy old, hammers and axes, that have wooden handles that you could, replace that are like legit.
Yeah.
So like that's a store of value, and if you're paying, pennies, for an item like that, like, well, I don't need it right now. I'm not saying become a hoarder. I'm saying all of a sudden, what is valuable? Well, if you're standing in the rain and somebody has 2 umbrellas, it's like, wow, that's pretty valuable. I didn't have much value for one a minute ago, but now I do, because the environment I'm in changed. And so that's what we're talking earlier with that, the grinder. Well, the grinder's $600. Well, what if you can't get one? Well, it's worth everything.
Right.
Exactly.
And so, thinking in terms of that, I just don't think we're in a season right now. And I say this often on our show, but we're not in a season of accumulating jet skis and toys.
Right.
No.
We're in a season of like, hey, it's like talking to your grandparents or somebody went through the Great Depression. It's like, well, they reuse their aluminum foil and they flatten it out or whatever.
The tractor is the closest you're going to get. That's like your land jet ski.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
But we're in a season of what we need to be thinking in terms of assets, stores of value, and what's going to get us through the season. Now, maybe 3 years from now, 5 years from now, this things will be might be in a different context. But right now it is, we're not in that season of, hey, everything's just ducky and we can just make it rain, or whatever. We're in a different mindset.
No, we are. I mean, and I think about it again. So obviously, silver is my number one recommendation. That's what I talk to my audience about as well. Like, because I think that it's so undervalued right now that it's significantly like it's going to go up a lot. That's my prediction. I'm not, again, like, take whatever, disclaimer, do your research, and, past results don't guarantee future, whatever that, this whole saying is. But so obviously silver is a big one, but also because it's so portable, you can barter with it. Because I think, let's just say that tomorrow the currency completely collapsed, right? Hypothetically. I think that we would first enter into a barter system, right? Because at the very beginning, people are like, I don't want your silver. Like, I need eggs. I need, I need some food. I need fuel or whatever. I need lighters. So like part of what I'm buying is those kinds of items, even Bic lighters. I went online and I ordered like 150 Bic lighters. just to have sitting. Like, what's a Bic lighter worth in the future?
Right.
If that scenario, you could try. I could trade that for.
Man, have you ever seen Tom Hanks on the island trying to get a fire going?
Exactly.
Make a fire.
Right?
That's not so easy.
Right. So, those kinds of things. Even but looking at like basic supplies. So if I go to the hardware store, I do a lot of kind of home product. I'm always building things. I'm instead of buying a little box of screws, I'm buying 2 1-gallon buckets of screws, and I'm putting them on my shelf because like, what if I can't buy screws in the future and I need to repair the roof on my chicken run? Yeah, how much is a screw worth?
Hard to make them on your own at home.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. So zip ties, screws, even electric power drills. Like Milwaukee, tools. Because like if I have solar, I can charge my power tools. And if I had to build some structures for build more garden beds, I want to have good power tools. So it's really it's kind of everything. But sorry, you have a question?
No, I'm just my brain's just zipping.
Well,
so
we've even thought about, like, we've already bought. So June, who's two and a half, we've already bought the next 5 years worth of clothes for her. All right, because what if we can't get clothes for her in 2 years? I mean, I don't want to. Like, where's it go? Obviously, again, it's like I asked my wife, and the saying comes from her. It's like, well, how much should we prep? And well, how long is a piece of string? Right? It's like 10 years. So there's obviously within reason, but like, I've gone out and bought a couple extra pairs of really high quality work boots. Okay, like if I'm in the future, if I'm gardening every day and I wear through my only boots I have, I'm screwed, right? So it's even looking at some of those things, which I think are really key. One of the other things actually 2 other things that we didn't touch on, I wanted to touch quickly on. One was medication, right? We touched a little bit on it, but one thing is that, and this is something I'm exploring, is getting antibiotics. So that's like, I think that when antibiotics were introduced, at the time when antibiotics were first introduced, I think 5 of the top 6 causes of death in America were infection. Like and that got wiped out with antibiotics. So there's one company called Jace Medical, which I think is like JACE, which you can go and you can buy kind of more bulk. It's kind of expensive because they have a way that they do it, like a prescription. You can also go to Mexico and get antibiotics, or there's Jace. Oh, sorry, JASE. So what they do is that this is kind of like antibiotics for preppers.
Okay.
So you can go on there and you can buy a kit of antibiotics for basically all the different things that you would need to have.
And do you need a prescription for that, or do you get it through them?
They have doctors that like will give you the prescription basically. I think there's a way that they do it because antibiotics are very shelf stable. But antibiotics could be the one thing that could save many people.
Sure.
Like you would see, if there was, say, a grid down scenario, a large amount of people that would end up dying would be because of a lack of antibiotics.
Okay.
Because they wouldn't be able to. Even a small little cut, if it gets infected, will kill you.
Oh,
right?
when we lived in Mexico for a few years when the kids were in high school, you would be in a conversation with somebody who would be like on a crutch. And we're in a rural area. We're not like Cancun or these kind of things. We're in farm country, but
very agricultural.
Talked to a guy one time, he's missing half of his foot and he's on a crutch. I'm like, man, what happened? He stepped on a nail.
Yeah.
And it got infected. I'm like
that just wouldn't happen here.
Like
not in current.
No.
In my mind, that's not a life altering thing, but when you don't have those things or access to them, it is.
Yeah. So
Makes
that's
sense.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is just protection, right? That's one of the, it was a lot of things, but that's one of the other keys is, again, look, I'm a very anti-violent person. I've never been in a fist fight. I was always the guy that would find a way to de-escalate a situation because I don't want to hurt people.
Right.
I just like, that's just not who I am.
You want to change that right now?
Yeah.
Say something bad about our grandkids.
Yeah, exactly. That all changes. For
your story will change.
I know. Yeah. So, but being able to defend your family, and I've really come to understand the Second Amendment in a very much more profound way in the past couple of years. It's really about protecting, and protecting whether it's from a tyrannical government, from an invading army. Like what if Chinese troops drop from the sky? They say, okay, you don't have any guns. It's like, you use a bow and arrow. Right. So that's the one thing is I think it's important for people to be able to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'll say is that for people that are new gun owners, take some lessons, learn, take some concealed carry classes, take some training, like learn how to use the gun properly. There's also all kinds of indoor target systems you can get, like iTarget, I think is one I use, called Mantis, iTarget Mantis. But you can basically, you can do your practice shooting inside with a little laser bullet, so that way you can do dry firing without wasting ammunition.
Yeah, that's cool.
But learning, learning the basics, and again, for someone who's starting from scratch, maybe your goal is to have, say, 3 or 4 guns. You get a handgun that you can conceal on your person, a shotgun, which is just kind of good for general zombies and stuff, right? A rifle, which is you can become proficient at for medium to long range, and that really covers the main bases. I mean, maybe a little. There's the iTarget. A little 22, like I have a little 22 rifle, a little 22 pistol. The ammunition is like less than 10 cents a piece, but they're good for hunting small game or even as some level of self-defense in a worst case scenario. But also then again, getting into, ammunition, bullets. Like I think that's going to be a currency in the future potentially. Sure. And, again, if you read what's happened in different areas and regions where there's been a collapse or whatever, or even if you read, I see a couple of the books, about, grid down scenarios, you can see that even 10 rounds of 9mm is worth, you could trade 10 rounds of 9mm for the antibiotics that will save your life, right? Because it's going to be such a needed item there. But I think that just kind of taking a step back and looking at all this, it can be very overwhelming. And maybe hearing this conversation is overwhelming, but the key is that like, we got to start somewhere. Yeah. But then also I think that it's about framing it. Like these are all changes that we're making to become more self-reliant, to become more like protective of our family. Like even like the feeling that I have as a father, being able to produce food and know I can defend it. And it gives me this feeling of like, I'm the man, right? Like I can do this. Yeah, it does. And so, but so this whole journey, like if the key is, and this my own experience, my wife's experience, don't let it be a fear-based journey, because when you can pull yourself out of that and say, you know what, we're just becoming human again. Like we're returning to how our ancestors lived, and we're returning. It actually becomes really exciting and beautiful. It really does.
Hey, Flyover family, we have a brand new sponsor for the Flyover Conservative Show, Heaven's Harvest. So exciting.
We've been really excited about this partnership because for about 2 years now, our level of awareness has increased on things that can go wrong in the world. Not just the big major stuff, but ice storms in Texas and things that you don't plan on. And I guess a level of personal responsibility of like, hey, we have people that we care for that depend on us. And so we've been tiptoeing into it, but it's overwhelming. It's like, what do I do next? And so we've made little steps in that process, but we've been asking everyone we know, everyone we respect in this space, hey, who's a good supplier of things? Who has food that you would actually eat if you had to, that without eating styrofoam that you'd be gagging down if you lost a bet? Like real actual food that if you put it away for storage, that when it came time to do it would be palatable, as well as heirloom seeds. A lot of the seeds nowadays, you plant them, they're not, you can't reproduce with them. They've been genetically modified and really messed up. So we've been asking people we really respect. Somebody we get a lot of advice from personally, and we've made a lot of small moves in our life from, is Seth Holehouse with Man in America. And we kind of went off of his lead as well as some others. And so we are super excited about this partnership because they're willing to give a massive discount to the Flyover family.
That's exactly right. When you go to heavensharvest.com and you use promo code FLYOVER, you get 10% off. What a great deal. We are so thankful and excited about this partnership. And I have so much enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for everything that you've done in private that you're now sharing in public. That's not helping. It's helping us. It's helping all of our listeners. It's really powerful.
You mentioned community a lot. This is a relationship we didn't have 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other ones, and one way that came together is the ReAwaken America events. That's where we met you the first time in person. I'd seen your videos.
Yeah. We were so excited. We met you in that hallway. I remember we met you in Michigan.
That. Yeah.
It was
kind
so
of
cool.
fangirling on you a little bit. Like, oh my gosh! It ended up pulling on your beard and everything. But that's an important part of being in community, meeting people. Yeah. We got another one coming up in May in Drow, down in Miami, Florida.
That's going to be such a great
Going to be in Las Vegas, I think, in August, which is, it's a good time to warm up go to Vegas, you know, and have that. But it's important for people to kind of find your tribe and to plug in to like-minded people, because, you know, isolated and alone, we're not the best.
No.
But when you come together, like-minded people, I remember even when we lived away from the area we grew up in, you know, we've lived in other parts of the United States and even outside the United States. When you see somebody that had like a, you know, your sports team or something, a hat, you'd be like,
oh yeah.
Hey,
oh, when I was in
my
New York
brother,
City,
you know,
I'd see people with like an Ohio State.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, OH, IO. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
You know, there's that commonality. It feeds you, you know, your confidence. And so hopefully you'll be coming to our meet and greet. We're going to host another meet and greet.
I will. Yeah.
We're going to have so much fun.
in
It's
Doral.
in a beautiful room there at the host hotel. In fact, if people are listening, they can just text the phone number 40509. Text the word party for the information, because we're really excited about this meet and
It's
greet.
going to be a great one.
It's
We're
going to
gonna
be a great
This
one.
is going to be our big crescendo, our big to-do. We're looking forward to that one there. And I think that's an empowering thing to know too. It's just, you're not alone. You know, that there's a lot more people that value God, that value our country, that value the principles this country is based on. And I do think some of the parameters, maybe our currency, some of the way leadership is, I think there's going to be a lot of changes in this next window. But the bedrock that those changes are going to be sitting on is going to be the same.
Oh yeah.
And I think that is what's going to help us survive and move forward, is that commonality, that as a people group, we have a lot more in common than what the media wants you to think we do.
Oh yeah.
And you turn off the TV and you step out of your house and you actually have a conversation with your neighbors, even if there's like one outlier thing, like, whoa, we're way different on that. There's a lot of overlap as humans that we have. And I think that's what's going to help us get through, is not just going back to being human, but find out what makes us human and connecting on that. And that is what's going to help us survive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to the future. And there's going to be some rough patches, but overall, I'm excited. I think I'm more excited for the future than I've ever been.
Wow.
And it's incredible, actually. And fundamentally, it's like, you know what? God chose me to be here, like on this day, right? And so there's a reason I'm here. There's a reason that three of us are sitting in this room. Is that there's something that we're doing. And there's a reason that all the people that are watching and listening are where they're at in their lives, because there's a bigger battle going on, and we're just all doing our best at it. And this is. It's a pretty amazing feeling.
I totally agree. Truly, this is the best time to be alive, and we were chosen for such a time as this.
Yeah.
So, Seth, thank you again for joining us today.
Oh, yeah.
We really appreciate it.
I feel honored to be out here in the Flyover studio. What an honor.
Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for a free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.